Welcome to forest bathing. We know that everybody can't get into the forest to enjoy the beauty that is surrounding us. So today we're bringing the forest to you. We're bringing the sights and the sounds. You might like to light a candle so that you've also got the smells. Ground yourself by putting your feet on the floor and taking a deep breath in. Breathe in the expectation of your forest bathing experience. Breathe out, and please enjoy this presentation. As we draw a close into our forest bathing experience, I would like you to look up into the sky one last time and listen for the birds as their echo goes through the forest. We're bringing ourselves back into the room and onto the path for the last time as we take a few steps out of the forest. You may like to turn off this recording at the end and just bathe a little bit longer. It's sometimes nice at the end of the bathing experience to be able to just sit in what you have experienced. Thank you for joining us for forest bathing. Let's change it up and step into digital detox. Now, what do I mean by digital detox is anything that's electronic is turning it off. So you've got your iPhones, your iPads, computers, televisions. Turn them all off, unplug them if you think they're going to go off, and spend some concentrated time without any of those devices. So when you turn everything off, all of your electronic devices, what happens is it allows you to switch yourself on. Everything externally is turned off, but everything internally is switched on. It allows you to connect with your breath. It allows you to connect with your heart. But if we don't stop, we just keep pushing ourselves forward and hurting ourselves because we just keep going and going and going and going, which is what carers do, especially at this time of the year. So one idea that I have for you is to set yourself up a sensory room. And I've started seeing them pop up in the mental health systems around Victoria, where there's actually a dedicated space where patients can go in and experience the sensory room on their own. And there's lots of different things available in the sensory room. You could have a chair or a small area in your house where you can just go, this is going to be my space. So what do you put in a sensory room, and why do you have these things? With digital, our mind is so busy all of the time that we have all of these neurons firing around. When they're switched off, our brain still wants to have some sort of sensation. And we can do that by offering sensory in the touch, the smell, the hearing, the tasting. All of the senses that we've got at our disposal are available for a sensory experience. And when you slow down and you don't have any distractions, you can start experiencing these things in a new and meaningful way that will help you to unwind and will also refresh you enough to keep going for the rest of the day. So I want to share with you some of my sensory tips and tricks. I'm sitting on one of them at the moment. Well, this is my favourite chair, by the way. A pillow here. It's black as well. And it's got little arms on the side. Fits on both sides. And when I sit down, it hugs me. And it's really, really comfortable. I also have this blanket. It took me a long while to find this blanket. I eventually found it in Harris Scarves at Knox City. And I'm sure it will be in the other stores. This blanket is so soft, and just touching it soothes my soul. It feels beautiful. It feels like a warm hug. When I put it up against my skin, I love the way that it feels. I'm comforted. If I need to just put a blanket over my legs, this is a sensory experience. All that I'm showing you now is a sensory experience. And these are like gifts that you're giving yourself. What else can you do? What about a smell? My favourite is lavender. Now, lavender, you'll have to check if it's okay for you to have lavender. I like putting it just here on my wrist. You can put it on the pulse points of your wrist, but I just put it on there, rub it together, and then just as your hand goes past, it's just this beautiful, beautiful smell. Lavender oil is available at the chemist at a fairly low price. It's not really expensive. But you've also got things like this at Kmart, or you can buy special essential oils at other retail stores. And there's lots of them available. Here's my other favourite go-to. Let me share. Candle. Looking into a flame is warming, and it's got a life of its own when you're looking at it. It warms my soul to look at a flame. But the smell that's generated from a candle is something that just takes my mind away from what I'm doing into a space where I can concentrate and think about other things. So I highly recommend candles. And just a tip, when you are first lighting your candles, always leave them to burn right to the edges. And if you do that, then your candle will burn straight down right to the edges. Whereas if you stop it in the middle, it'll burn down through the middle. So always burn your first burn of a candle all the way to the edges. That'll make it last longer. The last tip is one of my go-tos, and it's chocolate. It's lollies, little fish. All of these, when you eat them, let them sit on your tongue for a little while. Taste the texture and the flavour. Really savour the moment. Music and sound are two other things that you can have. It might be the sound of music being played that you can play yourself, or it can be recorded music or a record player. That's also a sensory experience. Putting a record onto a record player, lifting up the needle, placing it down, listening to the crackling as it goes around. Another sensory piece of equipment is a weighted blanket. Weighted blankets are widely available in Australia now. I think I brought my one from Spotlight, and it's a very heavy blanket. And when you put it on, it weighs you down. So it pushes you into the bed or into the chair with the weight of it. And it's like having a warm hug. It's really quite a beautiful experience. So those are some ideas for you. There's plenty of other ideas. You can create, you can draw, you can colour in, you can do anything along those lines as well. There's so many different ways that you can digitally detox. Pick what is good for you, pick what you enjoy, pick which is easiest for you, and one where not only can you stop and do it with a short amount of notice, but something that you can do regularly, because it's really important that you take a digital detox and just ground yourself ready to go forward and do all of the tasks that you need to do for the rest of the day. Gratitude is the quality of being thankful for all things, showing appreciation for all things, and returning kindness that is shown unto you. When you practice gratitude, you'll find that it reduces depression, lessens anxiety, relieves stress, and it makes you feel better too. When you're showing gratitude, you suddenly realize what it is that you've got to be thankful for. And believe me, there's a lot of things that we have to be thankful for, even though our circumstances may be overwhelmed around us, especially at this time of the year at Christmas. An attitude of gratitude is a conscious habit to appreciate the big things that happen in your life and to also appreciate the small things that happen in your life. With small things, we often just let them slide by and don't give them any recognition at all. Whereas with an attitude of gratitude, we actually pause and savor the moment and think about why we're grateful for this or that. Brian Tracy is a fabulous mentor, and he has something called the 4 elements of gratitude. The 4 elements are appreciation, approval, admiration, and attention. Each of those things, when you break them down, can be easily done. They don't cost you anything. Appreciation is appreciating everybody who comes across your path. Showing appreciation for all things, and think about all things, not just big things. Showing appreciation for all things will get you in that attitude of gratitude. Approval is another word where you reinforce to those who are around you that they're doing a good job. You're acknowledging that the work that they've done is just great. Thank you very much. You're not criticizing. You're speaking to them in the positive for all of the things that you're noticing. Tell them how much that really helps you and your environment at work and how much you appreciate it. So we'll go back to appreciation, but it's also approval for what they're doing. Approval is complimenting someone on their nature, on who they are and who they are being and how they're doing that. Admiration is letting someone know what you really love about what they do or how they do it. I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh my God, I love your eyeshadow." That's admiration. And I'm like, "Oh my, that's really cool." Or someone will say, "Are you wearing blue mascara?" and look puzzled into my eyes. And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And they're like, "It looks really cool." That's admiration. Say something nice about the way that someone's looking, their hair, their makeup, their clothes, their shoes. There's always something that you can compliment someone on, no matter what the circumstances are. The next one is attention. Giving your undivided attention is the biggest compliment that you can give to someone. When a child, calls out for your attention and asks you to watch something that they've just created or something that they've just learned how to do, and you fob them off, that's not giving them attention. Giving them attention is stopping what you're doing, giving them a moment to show you what they want to show you, and then praising them for that, appreciating them, giving them your approval. Goes back to all of the other A's. You can do this in the workplace as well. Somebody has something to tell you at work or share with you at work, an idea. If you leave yourself open to receiving ideas from your co-workers, then they will bring them to you. And if you compliment them for that and you appreciate them for that, they'll keep doing it. This is where the attitude of gratitude actually grows and grows. And if you're constantly seeing things that you can be grateful for, then it's very difficult to be depressed. It's very difficult to be down in the dumps. It's very difficult to be sad because you're grateful for everything. When you show gratitude to other people, it boosts your own self-esteem. And it feeds you in a way that unless you practice it, you won't understand. But it's a double-edged sword. Not only does it boost your self-esteem, it also boosts the self-esteem of the person that you're giving it to. So it slices through both, which is really beautiful. The exercise that I've got for you today is a simple one. I'd like you to get a piece of paper and a pen. I'd like you to sit quietly for 10 or 15 minutes. Longer if you want. And I'd like you to write down everything that you are grateful for. All of the big things, all of the small things, and all of the other things in between. And when you're overwhelmed this Christmas because of all of the things that you need to do, because the clock is ticking, we're getting closer and closer to the day when, quite literally, as a carer, the shit hits the fan. And the wheels fall off the wagon. And you can't prepare for that. But if you've got a list of things that you're grateful for, you can go back to that list in the midst of the storm and sit down and read it and feed it back into your soul. All of the things that you're grateful for. You may need to set aside an hour to do this. I hope that you accept this gift of gratitude and you really bring it into your heart this Christmas. And I hope you spread it around the world as well, because we could do with a good dose of gratitude everywhere we go. Boundaries might not seem like a gift because there's something that we have to do that often we feel uncomfortable doing. So it appears sometimes to be a bit of a burden. But if you can get boundaries right, they can be one of the greatest gifts around. Boundaries are one of the most difficult things for carers to unfold or unpack, because carers are generous, giving souls that go over and above what anyone else in the world does. We give so freely that we often forget how to set boundaries and how to say no. So boundaries are personal limits that define what we are willing to accept and what we are willing not to accept. And the thing about boundaries is, if you just keep them to yourselves, nobody knows what they are. So if somebody breaks one of your boundaries or commits what's called a boundary violation, and they won't know it if you don't tell them what your boundaries are. So it's really important to not only set up your boundaries, but to let your family and friends know what those boundaries are. If you didn't set boundaries around the time that someone could call or visit, you'd be getting messages all day and all night. So that's an example of setting a boundary. Boundary violations come in many different forms. Boundary violations are about being disrespectful, about somebody not respecting you when you say no, trying to cajole you into accepting something or saying yes when you want to say no. That's a boundary violation. Lies and deception are a boundary violation. Gaslighting is one of the biggest boundary violations. And it took me a long time to figure out what gaslighting was. Gaslighting is when the other person makes you think that they didn't say it, or they did say it, or something didn't just happen when it did happen. And so I remember one time in a very bad marriage, I thought that I was losing my mind because of the way my partner was acting. But he was full-blown gaslighting me, and I thought that I was the one with the problem. Manipulation is another form of a boundary violation. When you set healthy boundaries, you start to protect your own mental health and your own well-being. When you don't, you become exhausted and burnt out. So when you set good boundaries, you prevent burnout. Clearly communicate to your loved ones and to your friends how you would like to be treated. Lay down the law. And the thing about setting boundaries when you're always used to saying yes is that it's very hard to start saying no all of a sudden. When I had to learn this lesson a number of years ago, instead of saying yes, I would say, I'll get back to you. Or I would say, let me check my diary and then I'll let you know. Or let me check in with my partner or my son or whoever I happen to need to check in on. I would never give them a yes or a no, because I needed to remove myself from the situation long enough to consider whether I wanted to do it or not. When you remove yourself, you can think clearly, do I want to spend the next 5 hours donating my time in the food line when I've got 6 kids at home? Probably not. So you can ring back after you've had that thought and say, look, I'm sorry, I'm unavailable for that amount of time. Removing yourself from the situation gives you that space to be able to consider whether you want to do it or if you can do it, whether it's possible for you to spend that time. So as an art exercise, what I would like you to do today is I want you to make yourself a little sign. Here's one I've prepared earlier. And it says, it's okay to say no. Because we need to remind ourselves that it is okay to say no. I want you to hear that again. It's okay to say no. I hope that you consider looking at your boundaries today and consider setting really healthy boundaries around this whole Christmas period, because ultimately you will make it better for yourself. And I just want to thank you for tuning in yet again to spend some time with me. Thank you.